Esther Prynne, you have been found guilty of adultery.
We are loath to invoke the full penalty of the law. So if you would have us be merciful, reveal the name of him that tempted you.
No.
I was not interested in the Scarlet Letter when I was growing up. I'd never read the book. I'd heard about it, and it was kind of a way of putting women down who had children out of wedlock or things of that nature. And they talk about the Scarlet Letter, meaning the way women were ostracized. And what happened that got me involved with this thing is such an odd historical story, and it happened as follows. I was going to the City College Film Institute in New York City, and as part of that I went to the regular City College and was taking normal courses, and one was in English literature, and we had an assignment to read the book by Nathaniel Hawthorne, The Scarlet Letter. So I was not interested in it at all. I was interested in my film career, film history, film studies, jobs I was doing, and wasn't interested at all in the Scarlet Letter, but I had to read the book. And I kept putting it off until whatever it was I had to do on it was due. And so I remembered that my good friend TV host Joe Franklin had a 16mm print of the 1934 early sound version of the Scarlet Letter starring Colleen Moore, who had been a big star in silent movies. And this was kind of a comeback for her. Now, she had made some early 30s films, but nothing that really meant anything. So I went over to Joe and I asked to borrow his print, and he lent it to me, and I screened it over the weekend when this report was due. I figured if I didn't get a chance to read the book or wasn't interested in it, I had seen the film, I could answer questions about it or whatever. And so I screened the film, and I ended up really liking it. I was really impressed with the film, its production value, the acting, everything about it. It just really impressed me. And so it drove me quickly to get the book and read it. And I read it over a day or two, and I was highly impressed with the book. Now, that must have been around 1957 or 58. By 1963, I was off on another tangent. I had been working for James Warren, writing articles for Famous Monsters, Screen Thrills Illustrated, which I edited, and other things that I did. I had done an article on hillbillies on the screen, and I discovered that there was an original singing group called the Beverly Hillbillies, and I did know that they appeared in a Tex Ritter Western called Rolling Plains in 1938, but in 1935 they had a big starring role in a movie called Paradise Valley, made by Imperial Pictures. And so I looked at the history of Imperial Pictures, and I found it was owned by William M. Pizer, and his son Erwin Pizer was still around in 1963. And I went to meet him to see if he had the negative to this original Beverly Hillbillies feature from 1935, Paradise Valley, and maybe I could buy that negative and make a Hillbillies on the Screen compilation for television or theaters or something, playing off the popularity of the Beverly Hillbillies TV show. So anyway, Erwin Pizer got me his list of film negatives, and on the list was The Scarlet Letter with Colleen Moore from 1934, which I did like. Now, it turns out it was produced by his uncle, his mother's brother, Herman Gluckman, who was the head of Majestic Pictures. And that's how Erwin Pizer's father got the package of Majestic Films, and Erwin ended up with that negative. And I ended up, out of the blue, buying the negative and whatever rights Erwin had to the 1934 Scarlet Letter. Now, what was I going to do with it? Once I got it, I knew there were some problems with the negative, things I had to work on, and so on and so forth. But my thinking was, let me get off this hillbilly idea and go to something else. And the other idea was perhaps that my trying to improve my career in the film industry and get involved with things was maybe I would learn about film distribution by taking this Scarlet Letter and getting it distributed by a distributor. And I'd end up working with them and learning things that would help me to gain a background in film distribution, which I didn't have. And I went to all possible distributors of classic films like that, and I got nowhere. I couldn't find anybody that had any interest in it at all. I mean, yeah, such and such for 16 millimeter school rentals, maybe for television, blah, blah, blah. But nobody was interested in it. And I then talked to my friend who I had met the year before. This was 1963. And in going to LA or Hollywood for the first time in 1962, I met Denver Dixon, the father of Al Adamson, and he was distributing a film he and Al made called Halfway to Hell through sub-distribution, mainly in the South. And I told him about this. He said, "Oh, Scarlet Letter is a good film. Maybe we could work on it. Maybe I could work on it with you to reissue it theatrically." I then decided that I would be not just the owner of a film and try to license it to someone, but I would become a theatrical distributor. That was how I did it. So it was really my graduate school course after attending the Film Institute in learning about film distribution. So I decided in working with Denver Dixon that I would use Signature Films, and eventually we worked together to get the film distributed, starting in the South, starting in North Carolina with Bob McClure of Variety Films, who was a friend of Denver's, distributing Halfway to Hell for him. I got involved with this whole thing. My friend Bob Price, with whom I edited Screen Thrills Illustrated, he was an artist and designer, and he helped me with designing things. And eventually I worked with Denver by printing some posters for that reissue and design some things and do a press book, which I would write and plan. And so we made our own press book. It was my first theatrical press book and theatrical movie posters, one-sheet posters for the theaters, but turned out to be a little smaller than a one-sheet poster. At the time, it was not such a worthless project just as a study, because once I started spending money that I was making at other jobs, it had to become a real business. One of the things I began thinking about was that I had learned that MGM had been reissuing literary screen classics like Captain's Courageous and some others I don't remember. But for some strange reason, they had the head of their publicity department, Cy Seidler, who I knew, and they had 8 of them. And they did not go through MGM exchanges, but they gave them to independent sub-distributors. So it turned out Bob McClure was one of them. And I said, "Well, Bob, if you're playing these, what do you do?" He said, "Well, we go ahead and we go promote it to the schools. We run them theatrically, but the schools bus in their kids, and we've got 8, so over an 8-week period, they bust in the kids to see 8 literary screen classics from MGM." Well, I didn't know what it was, but in my research, I found out there was some connection with MGM having made the silent version of the Scarlet Letter, which had been made in the mid-20s, and some of the same people were in the film. Henry B. Walthall, the famous D.W. Griffith star, he played the same part with similar makeup in both the MGM silent version and in the sound version. So in doing my research, I ended up contacting Colleen Moore, and she came to New York. She was married to Homer Hargrave, a big banker. They lived in Chicago, and she came to New York to be on Joe Franklin's show, and I met her then and explained to her what I was doing, but she never liked the Scarlet Letter. She was very ambivalent about it. I don't know why she didn't like it, but I found out more about it later. So I kept after her about this, that I was doing this and I was going to reissue it to theaters, and so I guess she kind of humored me and accepted it. But the most interesting thing was that part of the Scarlet Letter was shot at the Pathé Studio in Culver City, which was also known as the In Studio and the Culver City Studio, and eventually Selznick Studio. Part was shot there, and part was shot at the RKO Pathé Ranch. I don't know what that had been originally, but it was an old location that had all these buildings that looked like the Puritan era, and they shot there. Now, that same place was also used for where they shot Daniel Boone with George O'Brien in 1936.
Arthur Dimmesdale! I've been looking for you. Pearl, dear, don't go too far.
Hardy Albright, in his letter to me, he mentioned what had happened with Colleen Moore, that there were snakes on location out at this ranch, RKO Pathé Ranch. And snakes doesn't mean a garden snake. It means a rattlesnake could bite you and kill you. So we can't blame her for not liking them. And she had a limousine that drove her to location every day. And after shooting her exterior scenes, she would run to go back in and lock herself in her car. Well, some of the wise guys on the picture, they were making fun of her. And so they put a snake in her car. And when she came in, I don't know what kind of snake was, whether a poisonous snake or not. When she came into the car, she freaked out, had a nervous breakdown, and went to a hospital. So she did not have a fond memory of the Scarlet Letter based on that snake episode. We don't know the rest of the story, but that's the story told to me by Hardy Albright.
Is that you, Roger?
How are you feeling this afternoon?
No better. No worse.
Have patience, my friend.
In my files, I found the letter to me from Hardy Albright. It's quite a long letter, and I'm going to read the whole thing here. Dear Mr. Sherman, I received the photos in your letter of December 6th, for which I thank you. The stills are excellent, and I am pleased to see them, and no lipstick on my face, a rarity in those days. The makeup man on this picture was a Middle European character by the name of DeLong. He constantly buttonholed me to put money into a beauty product manufacturing outfit he was starting, but I didn't. Exteriors were shot in the hills of south of Ventura, near Sherman Oaks. They had an existing log cabin town there, and this company made some additions. It was the old RKO Ranch. That land is now a housing development. Interiors were shot in the Darmore Studios, 5823 Santa Monica Boulevard, near Van Ness. This still exists and is called Family Films. Now, how did I get started? I trained for it, went to a college teaching professional acting, and I graduated with a degree in acting, one of the first such degrees given. Some of my classmates were Carl Benton Reed, Russ Collins, Paul McGrath, Arthur Lubin, etc. There was no big promotion or opening, as I remember. I think all the money was gone. I can't elaborate on the Culverman connection. That means Ida Culverman of MGM, the secretary to Louis V. Mayer. But Jesse bears me out that there was indeed a sentimental and perhaps also a financial interest, that means of MGM, from the early Scarlet Letter to this one. Certainly all the facilities of MGM were available to us. They spent a lot of money on research and costumes. You can see they are the best. That fall, in quotes, I wore in the back of my hair cost $400 and was a triumph of the wig maker's art. Over the phone, I believe I told you that mob scene was peppered with the famous names of the silence. They were put out of work by the talkies, so they joined, in quotes. Scarlet Letter, it was made with respect devotion, even love, and I am glad that a man who understands those qualities himself now owns it. Sincerely, Hardy Albright.
Good day, Master Hawkins.
Oh.
Will you repair my basket?
Oh, it'll be a pleasure. It's quite heavy.
Mistress Billings was ill. I did her washing also.
Hey! It will take but a moment.
Now here is the letter written to me by Colleen Moore. Dear Mr. Sherman, just returned from Phoenix to find your letter and stills. Many thanks for the pictures. Could you tell me where I could have my lawyer write fractured flickers? They have no right to use one of my first national films. I have a clause in my contract that forbids any cuts in the film without my written consent. I'd appreciate your letting me know so I can send them a wire. I hate to see the old films ridiculed. Now to Scarlet Letter. I can't remember too much about it. It was made in a hurry, and what was we called a quickie, in quotes, in those days. I took the part because I wanted to play a dramatic role after all my comedies. There was no big premiere or promotion in connection with the picture. It was considered a sort of B picture, maybe C. But as so often happens, and why I cannot understand, a film that wasn't too great in its own day is now first-rate, while a first-rate one is often very bad. Doesn't hold through the years. The difference in working at a major studio like First National and one like Majestic is that at a time major studios, more time was taken, more rehearsal time allowed, more film wasted to be sure. The take is excellent, not that feeling of hurry, hurry, hurry. I'm really looking forward to seeing Scarlet Letter again, as you have built it up to me so that my curiosity is aroused. Do let me know when I can have a peep. The stills contained look good. Good luck to you, and I hope you have a big success with the film. We need more young men like you in the film industry. December 12th, 1963, sincerely, Colleen Moore Hargrave. Ink signature from Colleen Moore to me. Wow, that was just great.
My friend, you are pale. It is well that I am sailing with you.
Stop! Stop!
People of Massachusetts, ye that have deemed me holy, you that have loved me, behold in me the one sinner of the world.
Denver Dixon and I did distribute the film, mainly in the South, theatrically. And for a young man of 23, 24, 25, to be a theatrical distributor of a Hollywood picture, it was a pretty big thing. Started my career in getting into distribution, which led to production, and it's just amazing all these things that happen.
Then behold the dreadful witness of it.